This is the Pipkin and Turnbull show. It is January 25th, 2021. I didn't mess it up that time, Jamie. It is, and this is our 36th episode. And so we got a lot of NFL football to talk about today. But
A little
Jamie,
bit.
tell us everything that we're talking about today.
All right, so we're gonna go over the AFC and the NFC Championship games from last night, and then we're going to preview Super Bowl 55, and then it's now that we're down to the Super Bowl, it's now mock draft season, so we're going to take a way too early look at mock drafts, and just see what we think on that. So with that, Caleb. Championship games last night. What were your thoughts walking away from the games?
What do you think we should hit up? Should we hit up NFC or AFC? Where do you want to go first, do you think?
Let's start NFC.
NFC, okay. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So we had two of the greatest. We had Aaron Rodgers, Tom Brady's team. And Jamie, I don't know why it took me so long, but I was sitting there on my couch yesterday and I finally I've made the funny analogy of, how everybody's like, he's like TB12. And then I finally was like, oh, TB plays for TB. And I was like, that was so great. And then after that, I just put it together yesterday. I was like, oh, man, is that the only reason he went to Tampa Bay? Because if that's the case, that's brilliant. TB going to TB. And then bringing the Super Bowl to TB for TB. And the reason they're in the TB is for TB, if you can follow along with that. So that's what I was also thinking about. I loved the NFC Championship game. I thought it met every expectation of like the hype for it. The only thing that kind of a little bit bummed me out was I just felt like comparatively Green Bay's performance compared to against LA, especially they seem to just be really like what you always say, playing not to lose. Yeah. And that's what I just really felt like, with LA, I felt like they really came to dominate. And then, against Tampa Bay, I felt like, we don't want to lose to Tom Brady. Like, what can we do to make sure that he doesn't get back to Tampa Bay? And so, I had hyped up the O-line, and the O-line played. It wasn't like they played horribly, but it wasn't as a dominant factor as it was the game before. Especially if you look at their running game, I just felt like it was lackluster. They were able to do some things, but not in the way that they were against the Rams. So I felt like that was one big difference. But credit to Tampa Bay, they didn't let Aaron Rodgers really beat them with his legs and his mobility. They kind of just forced him to stay in the pocket, and look, I think Tom Brady is one of the greatest of all time for sure, but I don't think he had one of his greatest of all time performances, with 3 interceptions, and that's what was interesting about the game, because where it ended up, they just had a lot more bigger plays. To me, it's today we aren't really, because we talked about us not doing the best and worst because it would come out during what we were talking about, and I would say my worst from yesterday would be Kevin King's performance. The cornerback, I felt super bad for him because that was just a horrible, like, if you could define your worst game, that was Kevin King's game. Getting beat right before, you can't, with 8 seconds left, you've got to prevent the touchdown, and you've got, and that's, schemes over the top, like pull him back. I don't know, but he played right up on top of him and let him go right by. And, Tom Brady's able to look him off and go back, and just easy touchdown before the half. So that was a huge, moment in the game. But I'll let you get your first initial thoughts before we get to the last part of this game.
So, watching the NFC Championship game, it solidified something for me that I thought was only me that was thinking this. And then I watched Undisputed this morning, and then Skip has the same thoughts as me. So this game solidified that Aaron Rodgers is, like Skip Bayless said, a phony GOAT. He's a great regular season quarterback, but when it gets to the time that it matters, what has he done since he won that Super Bowl? And so I just looked at it like, Tom, the reason in our picks, I picked Tampa Bay because I knew that this Aaron Rodgers was going to show up. That this Aaron Rodgers, I don't know, like, if he's just done in Green Bay, like if he just doesn't want to be there anymore. It looked like a guy that was playing not to lose. But, like in my worst, that our best of worst of thing was them not going for it down 8. They kicked the field goal instead. You have supposedly one of the best quarterbacks to play, and you don't go for it in your red zone. And so I've had this feeling for a while that Aaron Rodgers is a great regular season quarterback and a below average playoff quarterback. And it just proved it. His performance yesterday. Now, Tom Brady did not have the best game I've ever seen of him. 3 interceptions, but he did enough to win. That was playoff Tom, and he put his team in position, made some excellent throws. His wide receivers made some excellent catches. All in all, great performance by Tampa Bay. But the Packers, man, I just don't know, like, when Aaron Rodgers talking about, like, he's got to think about his future and all that stuff. He's going to play next year. I just don't think it's going to be for the Green Bay Packers. He's got 3 years left on his contract. And there's, from what people are saying, there's language in the contract that he doesn't necessarily have to fulfill those 3 years. I would just have to look deeper into that. But I just, I felt myself wanting more out of that game. I thought it would be better. But it was a good game, good NFC Championship game. But Brady proved once and for all why he is going to his 10th Super Bowl, and why he is probably one of, if not the greatest quarterback of all time. I just don't know, like, Rodgers to me right now, I'm just not, I've never been, like, bought into Aaron Rodgers, I guess. At least in the playoffs.
Yeah, and my issues, the thing was, I think the best quality of Tom Brady is he capitalizes on the moments he needs to capitalize on. And I think he, that's his best attribute. And so that's what's always been hard for me to, like, and I think for a lot of people to, like, say the greatest of all time, because he's been benefited by, especially early on in his career, the organization he played for, and that is, he's talented, obviously, but like I said, that's, like, my hesitancy, because the numbers and the stats, and definitely would say that he's the greatest of all time. But when I think of just performances, and where I think Mahomes, if we go back and look at his career, at the end of it, I would more based on his trajectory at this point. Now that can change very quickly because Mahomes is a lot more mobile than Brady and a little bit, fragile at times. And we've seen that season after season, and I think that would only be his pitfall, to keeping him on this road to where I would say, like, Mahomes is the greatest of all time, and I think he's, like I said, is on that path just because I think, like, there are so many things that are just unstoppable about his play, and so that's my hesitancy with Brady, but the stats and just how he's got, he's clearly been the reason that his teams get to Super Bowls is because the moments where he needs to make the play, he does, and so that's, and that to me is the greatest thing about him, the greatest thing about the legendary players, when your team needs you the most, you were there to make a play, and so beyond the talent, whatever else you can say about Tom, that, I mean, you can't beat that legendary place where you are going to make, like, we know Tom Brady is going to make the play. Like, we know that if Tom Brady needs to get down the field, he's going to get down the field and give his team an opportunity to get that play. That's what makes him great. But, and then, we talk about Aaron Rodgers. The reason that we call him great is what I was just talking about, just the talent, his throwing ability, his mobility, is why we call him great, and so, and I think that's what's special about, like, a Patrick Mahomes is he's showing us that he's, like, molding those two aspects, because if you need a play so far from Mahomes, he's been able to deliver a play, so, and I know it's weird for me to, like, go to Mahomes, but I'm just saying my explanation why I've always been hesitant to, like, Tom Brady's the greatest of all time, because there's so many other factors that I play into Tom Brady's legacy, because, to me, he's the greatest quarterback who's had some of the greatest offensive lines ever. Like, and you all, that factor plays into it. But let's go back to, I've been going back and forth. I think people are all over Matt LaFleur's decision to get that field goal. I didn't hate it quite as much as other people hated not going for it. I think after the fact, you're like, oh yeah, definitely we should have gone for it. But if that ticky tack, pass interference call isn't called, they get a lot of time to get back down there. And so then, like I've always said, do you go back and say, oh man, that was a great call to go for the field goal, now you can go for the win, because I'm like with Matt LaFleur, I don't want to, I know at this point overtime would have been a better option, but I don't want to take the Buccaneers into overtime, and I think it was like a 4th and 12, so it wasn't I think if you were any closer, I think you go for it for sure. But I think the distance is where, you go for that field. So I'm not one of those that I'm like, it was horrible. I'm not on that camp. I can see why people are like, why don't you go with, you've got Aaron Rodgers, you got Devontae Adams, but to me,
and especially because they were like this season, I think the biggest part of that's just got me scratching my head is historically this season, Aaron Rodgers, Adams, Lazard, they've been historically great in the red zone. Like, they've scored a lot in those situations.
Yeah.
And so I think you put the trust in your quarterback and to go do what he's been doing. Now, Tampa Bay's defense, I think, is probably, I haven't looked at Pro Football Focus, but they've probably got one of the better defenses in the NFL. Probably top 5. But
up and down top 5 for me. What I've seen them play. But they did have a better performance for sure in that game.
So you got to take that into account. But I still think, you trust your quarterback in that situation to go get the score, to get the touchdown. But that was my only thing on that, was how great they've been in the red zone.
Yeah.
Like, why wouldn't you trust him in the biggest game of your year? Why don't you trust Rodgers in that situation to just get you 6 points?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was odd, that game, because I also felt like the way Tampa's defense had been playing, I don't know if they felt like they had something drawn up to where they felt comfortable enough going for it, like, yeah, you hang your hat on this play, and maybe they should have. I mean, maybe, and then because, like I said, I mean, a couple plays before, Tom Brady, the couple other drives, he was looking horrible. I mean, that's my thing, is like, I didn't feel like Tom Brady had a dominating game. He had dominating moments, which took him over. And so that's why I didn't hate it, because when you got to that point, and then all of a sudden on Tampa Bay's last drive to seal the game, I mean, flags were coming out like almost at every other play,
Yeah.
And the way, and I do agree that the way that they had not been calling pass interference in that game, based on that, I didn't feel like that should have been called a PI. And then number two, I don't think it would have been catchable if King. It wouldn't have even touched him. I don't think that ball's catchable. I think it's overthrown. So that was my problem with the PI. But and then the way Green Bay had kind of been going up and down up to that point, you think that they had a really good shot of going back down. So that's why I'm on the fence. I think because when they went with a field goal, it surprised me. It did surprise me in the moment, but I didn't hate it because of the way Tom Brady had been playing to that point, the way that offense had sputtered out. That's why I didn't hate that they went for a field goal. And I don't think people mention that. I think people are just getting caught up. You have Aaron Rodgers. Why don't you do it? And I think that, like, if that pass interference isn't called, Jamie, they get the ball back. There's a whole different view of this game if that call, so I also didn't like that. I didn't like that duo ended in that call. It's not like it was, technically it wasn't maybe the wrong call, but the ball didn't seem uncatchable to me. And it was him giving a tug, and every cornerback gives a tug, but poor, King had been having an awful game, and it was like, everybody's looking at King had the target on his back. That like I said, if you couldn't have had a worse experience for a cornerback in that, than King did. So feeling for him for sure. But yeah, but it is really cool to see that this is the first time that NFL team gets to host a Super Bowl, like, in their home. They get to go have a home game. I think that is pretty neat. And Raymond James Stadium is such a cool place, anyways, and so I think it's going to be a fun Super Bowl. And it's something like we had talked about. Regardless, Rodgers or Brady, I was really hoping for Rodgers, Mahomes, because the play style is a lot more similar. But it's exciting to see Brady and Mahomes. It really is. And so, it was. I liked the NFC Championship just because. I think I see where you're coming from, where you were expecting more from it, I think. But I liked it for the fact that there were I like a game with a lot of turnovers. I like a game where it's like, it's undecided until the last couple minutes, So that's why I kind of liked it. So I will, going over to the AFC, Jamie, the championship game. What are your thoughts?
Oh man. All right. So I'm ready. First, what else does Patrick Mahomes have to do to finally stop being compared to other people. Because, like, leading up to this game, it was Josh Allen is at Patrick Mahomes' level, if not better. Okay. That proved to be a lie last night. And so it just made me start looking at all the ways the media and the talking heads, which is what we are now, have tried to discredit the Chiefs all season. They made up a stat, basically it was like, well, Patrick Mahomes leads the league in dropped interceptions. What does that even mean? Like, it's so funny because they try to discredit this Chiefs team in hilarious fashion, and only to watch them still win. You know, this game, I was watching this game, and the Buffalo came out, early, and they got 9 points thanks to that Mecole Hardman dropped punt. I've said it all season. He does not need to be back there. Put Pringle back there because Hardman's been a liability back there all season. But so to me, this game felt like our freshman year in football, where we were the scout team against the varsity, and we got beat every single play. We got destroyed every single play. This game proved once and for all this season, at least this season, that the Bills are not on the Chiefs' level. They didn't need to be in that ball game. Hats off to them for winning the NFC East. Hats off to them for being in the AFC Championship for the first time in 25 years. But they're not at the Chiefs' level. And there's not many left in the NFL, period, that are on the Chiefs' level. And the Chiefs proved that yesterday. I don't even know what more needs to be said. Like, that, it was a good game, and the Bills hung around. But the Chiefs just, they're just different. They're built different. And that's what this game showed. Whenever they won, I wasn't even excited. Like, I was excited, but, like, I wasn't, I was in tears last year. This year, it was just expected. Like, this, they're going to win. There's nothing else to say about that. They're going to win. And we're going to go to Tampa Bay. You just felt that all season. Even when the Steelers were, the favorites in the AFC, and it was like, well, they went 11-0, and then, who's going to stop them? And then they got dispatched easily. I'm still sitting here like, the Chiefs are the best team in this conference. And they proved it last night. And now all the talking heads are just kind of quiet because it's like, what else do we have to say? What else does this team, like, what else can we say the Chiefs aren't? Because leading up to this game, it was they're winning close games. They're not blowing teams out. They're not winning by enough. And now they put up a double-digit win against what was supposed to be a better team. And it just entertaining to me. The game was good. It was a good game. But it was expected. The one thing that I am worried about is our offensive line is depleted. Fisher looks like he tore his Achilles last night. So our left tackle's down. Our right tackle is now Schwartz. He hasn't played months because of a bad back. And then we've got some fill-in guys in the middle. That against Tampa Bay's defense, that defensive line is something else. But so I wish we'd have got out a little more healthier. But I just don't know what else this Chiefs offense, this Chiefs team has to prove. I really don't. They're like the debate, is Mahomes better than this guy? Is Mahomes better than this guy? Is Mahomes? Like, what else? Who else does he have to beat at this point?
Right. No, I mean, yeah. I mean, ever since, ever since Mahomes started the Chiefs, like I've already put definitely the Hall of Fame jacket on him. He is something um that I've never seen before. Because without him, the Chiefs aren't here.
No.
And that's that. Even and what else was impressive about him last night was I felt like he doesn't have his mobility back previous to whatever happened in the Cleveland game. So that was another impressive aspect to me, was he really beat him in the pocket, so he can beat you in aspects of the game, which I already felt like then nobody else in this league right now can, and and I think that part of the reason at times I think we forget too that, and I like the fact that Jim Rance and Tony Romo definitely highlighted this every time, was they're getting teams' best shots this year. You're going against the reigning Super Bowl champion, the best, and what they were able to do in those circumstances, and to just really just stay as a team. This is an organization that that every player is bought into getting 2 in a row. Like every single player has been, and that's another impressive aspect of this team. That you could claim. I feel like with all the circumstances around everything, I think this is even a harder year to get to the Super Bowl, even though that they had maybe in the games that I don't know, still looking back, the Browns game, it was interesting to see what was happening in that environment. But I feel like I didn't understand the Bills completely imploding in the red zone when they were the best red zone team going into this game. And then settling for those field goals every time they picked them on. I was like, the field goals don't matter. They, if you convert, those field goals that they had in the red zone into touchdowns, this is a much different looking game. And so I also felt like Allen needed to use. He had opportunities to use his legs a lot more than he did, because the times he did do it, he was really successful. And I think that was something he had to do to get this Chiefs team off balance. But the thing that stuck out to me the most was, I think this was the best. This was when I've watched the Chiefs this year, the coverage was probably at their best in this game, because the Chiefs just being able to rush forward and everybody cover, because Allen had all day at times, but you look at the replay downfield, they're covering their butts off on those wide receivers. There isn't a throwing spot, and I think a lot of people are, why does throw it, throw it, but there's nothing to throw through when your coverage is that good. And when and like we said, I've been waiting for playoff Clark, and during that second half he started to show up. And so once
2 sacks.
once playoff Clark starts to show up, and then Okafor got involved. I still think it's hilarious that he threw the out, get that sack, and that whole scuttle happened. It was like, I know what you said, petty. I was just laughing. It just made me laugh when he beamed him in the head with the ball. And so nobody saw that until replay. Why is Okafor? Well, he beamed him in the head with the football. So
that was probably Allen's most accurate pass of the night.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just, if the Chiefs, are just so explosive that you have to make quick adjustments against them. And that's what they failed to do in the second and third quarters. Because at that point, their explosiveness, I mean, they were having whatever they wanted at that point in those 2 quarters. Because by the time the fourth quarter came around, I felt like number one, I think the Chiefs started winding it down for sure. But I do think the Bills, finally started to get some pressure and things like that, started to be able to do some things on defense. But yeah, I've never, I don't understand. Mahomes is the best quarterback in the NFL right now. And there's and I've never questioned that. What I did say, and what I still do think, is I didn't think Josh. I think what surprised everybody was we weren't sure that Josh Allen could get to a level to be your franchise guy, to be impactful in a game. And that was the transition in this season for Allen. And I think the Bills and the Mafia have a lot to build on. And I think they'll be back because they've got a lot of strong pieces to be back. And especially in a Bills division where the other teams are kind of rebuilding, but the Bills and Miami game, I think in the future are going to be great games. They're going to be fighting for that division. But yeah, in no way, in no way could you ever put Allen before Mahomes or whatever, that was kind of my biggest disappointment, is just the Bills kind of imploding in the red zone. And so obviously when the Bills got out to a 9-0 lead, that was just like, when the Chiefs get like kind of excited, I don't know. The weird thing was they've done this where like it's looking really bad. Kelsey's dropping balls, like things aren't hitting right when it's 9-0. And so you're just like, okay, come on guys. And then once they do, it's over, and so then they just keep scoring until they start winding things down. Then the only times I've ever questioned the Chiefs is sometimes, the play calling sometimes, but like last night, I mean, second and third quarter, you can't play call any better than what they did, And then on the other side, they were just looking for the big play way too much. I was like, you've got to start just chunking it down the field. You've got to start getting 5 and 7. Allen's got to start taking off, but they wanted to have a big play. Like they felt like we have to match them big play for big play, and you can't. You've got to take these 5 to 7 yards to get down the field. And that's the adjustment that I felt like the Bills weren't making in that game. So,
and not to go back to the NFC Championship, but I felt like at the end that's what Rodgers was doing as well. He was just going for chunks instead of just ding and dunking, just 5 yards. Heck, 3 yards. Get something, because you're just airing it out, and then it's incomplete, and now you're looking at 2nd and 10. Yeah. I was telling that to my wife and my sister, like, why is he just going for chunks? Yep. And I felt the same way in the AFC Championship. Allen was just wanting a big, big play, and it's like, they're not going to give that to you right now.
Well,
they're wanting you to run.
It's part of play calling, though, too, Jamie. I mean, you look at some of those replays. There's 2 verticals, and then you've got one guy running a 15 and in. Like they did that number. And I'm like, you can't do that. You have got to start mixing it up. You've got to do some drags, some slants, because their slant routes were pretty successful. And I felt like TJ Yeldon was having he didn't have like huge success, but he was having success running the ball.
Him and Beasley were having success in the middle of the field. I don't see why they went away from that. And So yeah, a lot of that's on McDermott, like, and whoever calls the plays for the Bills. Like, you just gotta. The Chiefs were not gonna let them. They weren't gonna let Diggs get behind them.
Yeah.
And that's why Diggs only had 77 yards. It's not happening.
Yeah.
So go to the middle of the field. Get you some stuff just in the middle, and then the Chiefs could start playing up, and then maybe you could get a chunk play. But
Yeah.
I don't know. They were wanting a lot of points in quick fashion, and teams get like that when they're down, especially in a game like that. So I get it, but I think a little more experience for these Buffalo Bills, and they're definitely back.
Yeah.
This is a soon to be Super Bowl team.
Yeah. And
they just need to get the experience of this game.
Yeah. And you know what? I mean, I myself, I mean, after I thought it was so awesome that I wanted for the Bills fans to be able to get back eventually, whatever that looks back, because what I thought was cool was, Lamar had the concussion in the game, and then the fans donated a ton of money to his charity. And I was like, the Mafia Squad, I mean, remind me a lot of Chiefs fans. They're loyal through whatever. They are loyal to a T, to however horrible their team looks like. They are loyal. That is our team, and so, like, when you see like a fan base like that, like, for me, I kind of want it for him, because, I mean, obviously this year, I mean, but I mean, they are out cold, whatever, blizzards. They're out there supporting their Buffalo Bills, and I think, just for their fan base, I'd like to see them, eventually make it back. So, but yeah, I saw that graphic and I laughed too. The one, I think you put it on your Facebook. I don't know what analyst it was that picked Josh Allen over Mahomes. I like in the wide receiver, I was like, I would say, I mean, to that point, I was like, you got to put like a check mark in the Buffalo's defense, and whatever the other two were. And he picked like the Chiefs defense, and I forget what the other one, but it was funny to me. But yeah, I mean, yeah, I've never seen, I mean, there's talent for the Chiefs, which everybody sees, but there's quarterbacks who's had that talent, like, with Smith and then Henne, when you see Henne and some of these other guys, like, the talent is still on the field, when these other quarterbacks play with this talent. But then you put Patrick Mahomes in the mix, and it's just something that we've never seen before.
He elevates the people around him.
Yeah.
That's what people are missing, is he elevates them. Like his 2018 year, that was his first year starting, and he made Chris Conley, who Alex Smith couldn't ever connect with. I think when Alex and Conley were both playing for the Chiefs, Conley had like one touchdown, and Alex in 2018 made Chris Conley look good.
Yeah.
And then he went and got a good-sized contract with the Jacksonville Jaguars, and we haven't heard from him since.
Yeah.
Now, a lot of that is because Jacksonville has not had a good quarterback. But, like, he's made – and Albert Wilson is another guy that Mahomes just made look good. And so everyone's just, like, automatically assumes that Tyree – he's only good because of Kelsey and Hill. It's like, well, they're both good, but you have to have a good quarterback – to be able to make them look good, who in return make him look good.
I mean, the only weapons before Mahomes' era that we talked about was Kareem Hunt and Travis Kelce. You weren't we all. I mean, even me, I didn't know what this wide receiver core was. I like, for me, I thought that may be their biggest hindrance. And then Mahomes enters in and makes Tyreek Hill, which he should be. I mean, like, Tyreek really is a cheetah. And so, but Mahomes is able to make the passes that elevates Tyreek's routes, because Tyreek's routes take forever, but they're explosive.
Mm-hmm.
Like the whole bumblebee or wasp route, like that takes time. Like a lot of
jet chip wasp.
Yeah, jet whatever the wasp, whatever it was. Like the routes that Tyreek's takes time, and then you need somebody with an incredible arm to get it to him.
Yep.
That's Mahomes, and and to me, what's most special about this win and his performance was he was doing it with just his arm. He didn't have the mobility like he had, and that's what makes him so special. So, so in 2 weeks, where I'm hoping that his turf, whatever is like hurting him, hopefully that'll start even getting better. But the Chiefs defense, Steve Spagnuolo, always getting them ready in the right time. They're starting to turn it on. So we can go a little bit preview into Super Bowl 55. What are your initial thoughts of that, Jamie?
Oh man, so this is a game that I feel like is going to be great. Mahomes and Brady, they're 2-2 against each other. And so, Brady beat Mahomes 2 times his first year starting, and Mahomes has beat Brady both times since. And so I feel like this could be one of the best Super Bowls ever. But, Brady's going to have to play better than he played yesterday. He's going to have to play. You're not going to be able to turn the ball over 3 times like he did, because the Chiefs offense will make you pay if you turn the ball over 3 times. If Brady is going to have to play probably one of the most perfect games of his career, because if Brady plays like he did yesterday against this Chiefs team, it's going to get ugly. It's going to look like Tampa Bay when we played them in Tampa Bay this season, in the regular season, because, Tyreek Hill might put up 200 yards in the first quarter against you again. If Tom Brady's going to have any chance against this Chiefs team, you cannot throw 3 interceptions against this Chiefs team, because the offense will not turn the ball over like that. And Mahomes will make you pay. And so I think this could be one of the better Super Bowls we've seen. One thing that's intriguing to me is, who was the defensive coordinator for the Giants when they beat Tom Brady? Steve Spagnuolo. And so if there's anybody that knows how to frustrate Tom and to put his defense in a position to win a game in a big situation like this, it's Steve.
Yeah.
And so I'm excited for that matchup. And so I think this could potentially be one of the better Super Bowls we've seen in a long time.
I mean, I think the reason I agree with you. The reason I'm hesitant is just like you said, the past 2 games, Saints and Green Bay, it wasn't the most impressive outing for Tom Brady. Getting the job done. That's why I say keep going back to moments when you need something. Tom Brady's there. So that's obviously what you need in the NFL. But talking about Steve Spagnuolo making that reference, I think that's what's so important to finally get Clark and Okafor and all these guys, Chris Jones going. Because if you think back to that Super Bowl, you think Michael Strahan, Jason Pierre-Paul, that front 4 are what got to Brady that game, and that's what's interesting about how they move forward, is they have to rely on that front 4 to get pressure, because you need everything else back in coverage. One of the things I think going into the Tampa Bay game, which is interesting, is Levante David and Devin White, the 2 linebackers for Tampa Bay, played incredible in the Green Bay game. I mean, those two guys are the center. I mean, linebackers always are, but the reason that makes this combination so special is I don't know if I've seen like better, coverage linebackers. They
Yeah.
really help in the pass game. They're to me, that's what I think Terrell Suggs, Ray Lewis. I think about their rushing, their tackling, that impact. But this is like the first duo that I can really think that they have major impacts in the passing game. And that's what I was I was like, well, what makes Levante David so special? What makes Devin White so special? It's their coverage, and especially for Levante David. I mean, he is always in the right spot. Like he is like we talk about with the greats. Like at the end of a play, they're always in frame, like in camera frame.
Yeah.
These guys are always in on the tackles. They're always in the right spots. And so I'm interested in that. What does that mean for the Chiefs offense when you've got linebackers that can get into coverage, those two guys helping and cover, Travis Kelce, because I see a lot of DBs trying to play that role. Does that free up the DBs a little bit for Tampa Bay against a Tyreek Hill and McCole, Hardman, and so that's what makes the Tampa Bay defense so interesting. And I think Tampa's got a pretty solid front, with Ndamukong Suh and Pierre Paul, going back to that Super Bowl. You look at Tampa Bay and their, Mike Evans and listen, Godwin's game was incredible. I mean, Godwin really was the difference maker for them on that. And so, and what are the Chiefs, in coverage because they had Stephon Diggs, but I don't think any other weapon really scares you like Godwin. I think Godwin and especially Mike Evans, is such a tougher matchup, especially Evans' side because Evans is just a faster tight end. Like he's just that's his size, But yeah, I don't know. I had all, and I still feel this way. I felt like any AFC team coming out of the championship were better than the NFC teams, and I still feel like that. I think overall, I still like the Chiefs over Tampa Bay, just because. I mean, it's you can't have if the Chiefs get up on you, like score on you. I've never seen teams to be able to rally against that when they were able to get to that point where they're starting to pour it on,
Yeah.
And I think they are going to have to get some type of running game going. I think they're going to have to use Hilaire or hopefully get Le'Veon Bell back or something to help, to just help start wearing. I think part of when you don't have a running game, you can't start wearing out the front seven of Tampa Bay. So then Tampa Bay can just get comfortable and just keeping their coverage on Kelce and some of the other tight ends. And then you just stay in coverage and just get comfortable and you don't tire out that front or, make them aware of any type of running game. But, losing Eric Fisher is huge.
Yes.
It's a huge factor because, I don't, correct me if I'm wrong, Jamie, but when I watch Fisher play, I feel like he's their best lineman. I feel like, and especially,
definitely,
losing your best lineman and your best lineman's your left tackle, your blind side. So that's a major factor in this game, But what does it mean to you for Mahomes and the Brady matchup?
Man, it's this is when we talk about like just to go to basketball real quick. When we talk about who's better, LeBron or Michael, and it's just like, well, you got people that say LeBron, you got people that say that Michael, but we'll never know because they never played against each other. For me, this is the LeBron versus Michael Jordan story. Like, whenever in 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, we're talking about the best quarterbacks of all time.
Yeah.
Who's better, Brady or Mahomes? And this will be the 5th time. Like I said, they're 2-2. Brady's won twice, Mahomes won twice. How fitting could it be that it ends in this game?
Yeah.
Say Brady retires, and it's either going to be he's up 1 against Mahomes, he's 3-2 against Mahomes, or Mahomes is 3-2 against Brady.
Yeah.
Like, how fitting would that be? And it's such a great matchup, and I love it.
Because if Tampa Bay does win, I mean, Brady kind of leaves no doubts, and he can kind of leave.
Yeah.
He could retire. I don't know if he retires if he loses.
Yeah.
I mean, I think I mean, and plus, I mean, Brady could show that he did it without Bill or the Patriots. If he does end up winning, what else do you really have to prove? I mean, you did what Peyton Manning did, winning one for the 2 different organizations.
Yeah.
I think I think there's a lot, when we think about what we think of them in the future. This game does have a lot, because if Mahomes does win and Brady does lose, and then like we talked about where we think Mahomes' future will be at, we can easily say, well, Mahomes ended up beating Brady, but then it always comes into questions. Well, you never did get past a Brady team, that will always be on Mahomes. And even the 2018, the AFC Championship, you never did beat a Brady team. Yeah. Nope. So, I mean, So, I mean, there is, this legacy talk on the line for both guys. I think even more so than yesterday, a lot of people said, well, whose legacy is most in damage? And you could probably, Aaron Rodgers was maybe the top one. But even still, I didn't feel like legacy changing, games, but this one kind of feels like that, because it really does feel like, everybody's like, Tom Brady's the GOAT. And then everybody looks at Mahomes and being like, well, like, this dude, though, this dude's going to change everything. This dude is changing everything about the game, And Andy Reid and the play calling is kind of changing everything about the game, So it's going to be fun. It's fun. As much as I wanted a Rodgers, Mahomes, just because, of my not favorite Tom Brady being in it. It is exciting. It is exciting to think of it in that term. And hey, at least it's not the Patriots back in it. At least he's in a different jersey. So I can at least appreciate that more, that I don't have to watch the Patriots again in another Super Bowl. And seeing Tom and Belichick together, so I don't have to see that combo. So did you have any other thoughts, or do you want? Let's go on to our mock draft.
Let's go to mock draft, man. We're gonna have like a couple weeks to talk about Super Bowl and all that, so we'll move on for right now.
Yeah. So, the reason we didn't do best and worst this week was me and Jamie. I mean, we really focus on football a lot, and NBA. Nothing's real. I mean, besides the Cavs beating the Nets, being a big storyline, there really wasn't even best. So we cut out the best and worst stuff, because what I found interesting is now we can start really looking at the draft coming up, and that's kind of exciting to me, because there's a lot of like quarterbacks going to be taken in this draft, and it's going to be a lot of the landscape is going to start looking different for teams. So the one that me and Jamie are using today is NFL.com. The writer and the person who making the mock draft is Daniel Jeremiah. And he published this January 22nd. And so Um, you know, obviously, me and you had been going back and forth. So my question to you, Jamie, is where is your level at with Trevor Lawrence at this point?
Trevor Lawrence, man, he's obviously the better quarterback in this draft. Um, and he's a clear number one overall pick. I see him having hopefully an injury free year his rookie year, but something on the similar lines of Joe Burrow. He's definitely the Jaguars are gonna look different.
Yeah.
The Jaguars will pick him. I don't think there's any debate with that. It's kind of like Colts with Luck and Lions with Stafford. Like this is the number one pick. Everything 2 to 32 are the ones that we're questioning, but the Jaguars are going to pick Trevor Lawrence. It's
So
just
you
it's
got a
a
little bit off of
clear.
the Justin Fields bandwagon for that.
I watched because I love doing mocks, and I'm gonna do my own for the show. So I wanted to really break down Justin Fields. So I watched some highlights, looked at some numbers when he was in Georgia, and then I just kind of looked and just broke it all down. And no, he's I tend to be agreeing with Daniel Jeremiah because when does he have him going? Seventh to the Lions. I would agree with that. Especially with Stafford wanting out now, them agreeing to mutually part ways. If the Lions can grab Fields at 7, I feel like that would be a good pick for them. But no, there was a little bit of question there, just because I like his mobility. But uh, no, Lawrence is. I don't think he's a generational talent like everyone's talking about. But I can see why he's the number one pick. Why he's the guy that's going to be in Jacksonville. And with Urban Meyer going to be the head coach there, Jacksonville is not going to like be in the Super Bowl next year. It's just not going to happen. But this is a 5-win team. I feel during Trevor Lawrence's rookie year. How they build around him is what's going to matter at the end of the day. And so, but yeah, Trevor Lawrence, that's going to be the number one pick. It's clear, just like I said, Luck, Stafford, Lawrence.
Yeah.
Like it's the obvious pick at number one.
And one thing I find interesting for the Jaguars, it's only been 4 years removed, I think, since they were in the AFC Championship. And so to me, that's what makes Jacksonville interesting, is because I feel like they've got some of that talent still lingering there in Jacksonville. So how, like, what does the timeline for the turnaround look like? And I do think Trevor Lawrence, I think he's unquestionably, to me, like, once again, like an Andrew Luck, definitely comparable to Andrew Luck, the number one guy for them. What I think is interesting about this is the pick at number 4, is, the Falcons potentially picking up Trey Lance. Trey Lance plays for North Dakota State. And I actually like him over Zach Wilson. But to me, the bigger question is, if they go at 4, like, because you're looking at Matt Ryan. Like, that's what's crazy to me is like the Matt Ryan era could, start coming to an end. But I also look at the Falcons pick. I think that pick could also be a little bit of trade possibilities at number 4. And I know for sure, what does it say? The Lions, he's expected for Lions to make a change or something, or like a trade to get into or something for Justin Fields. But But
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. It's kind of like what you've been saying all season long. They are the best losers in the NFL this year.
Yeah.
Because
Mm-hmm.
they lost a lot of games where they clearly should have won. I mean, clearly
Yeah.
this is not a like losing squad. Now, probably I would
No.
be looking at defensive first. I mean, before I start making changes, looking at Matt Ryan, you know,
Mm-hmm.
because that's where the Falcons truly failed this year. Just any type of defensive, um, any type of intensity. Like I never felt like when I watched the Falcons that
Yeah.
I saw like defensive intensity. And I mean, that's the thing when you're trying to make a difference at the front or any type of defensive scheme, they've got to start going early. But unlike last year, there aren't really guys that stand out on the defensive front like Chase Young was last year. So maybe that's what
Yeah.
they're feeling like. If we can get our guy that we like for the future and just wait on a couple of years to get him ready, let's just go ahead since there's really nobody on the defensive side that we like. So maybe that's
Yeah.
the thought process for the Falcons right now.
If I'm the Falcons, I don't go quarterback. I give Ryan another year. And I maybe look at Patrick Surtain. I maybe look at Patrick Surtain, or I look at Gregory Rousseau from Miami, or heck, even Kyle Pitts. If you want to get Ryan another target, go get Kyle Pitts. Or if you want to shore up that defense, go Gregory Rousseau he's a defensive end from Miami, or go Surtain, cornerback from Bama. Like, I don't feel like Ryan has showed a decline. I think the team as a whole has declined, but like Ryan, I still can play at a high level. He needs Julio to be healthy. He needs Ridley to be consistent. Get him a tight end, or get that defense something, a good player that they won't be giving up these leads. And so I feel like Trey Lance at 4, I don't really like that. And I definitely wouldn't take quarterback right now
Yeah.
if I'm the Falcons.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I mean, because I think I th- I mean Trey Lance is I think Trey Lance is going to be I think he's the problem is we don't have as much tape on him because I don't think they
No.
played or anything like that. I liked the years before what I saw from Trey Lance. That's his kind of biggest downfall, but his size, mobility, that's why I kind of like Trey Lance. But I mean, moving down into the second round, and once you get out of these first round quarterbacks, you've got quarterbacks that had a lot of success at the college level, like a Mac
Mm-hmm.
Jones or like
Ellinger.
yeah, Ellinger. You got Kyle
Trask.
Trask. That's it. I was trying to remember Florida's quarterback. Kyle Trask. So, but yeah, you've got a lot of quarterbacks this year, which is going to be very interesting because there's a lot of quarterback play needed on several teams. Like I even like mentioned my Steelers. Like, do you go in the second round after one of these quarterbacks, which I think you do? Just who is that quarterback going to be?
Yeah.
You know, um, what's
Nah, you guys just hitch your wagon to
yeah,
Haskins. It'll be
that's
okay.
right. You know, they're really what's also interesting, I don't see any running backs so far being projected. We got a lot of cornerbacks going, a lot of wide receivers. To me, that's
Mm-hmm.
what's interesting about the NFL, how it's changed over the years, is it's becoming
Mm-hmm.
more and more wide receiver heavy. Which in the past, which I would have said, there's no way you take a wide receiver in the first round. But just the
Yeah.
way that the NFL is changing, I'm also having to change my idea on that, um, because it's now becoming, running back. You can get a special running back, at any round, and so far right now
Mm.
there are no running backs being predicted. What's interesting to me is Devontae Smith from Alabama. What he brings to the table. The first wide
Mm-hmm.
receiver in this is Jamar Chase, um, uh, from BYU,
Mm-hmm.
which I don't know if I necessarily disagree with. I mean, numbers wide, Devontae Smith had, as a collegiate wide receiver, probably the best year as a wide receiver for Alabama. But I think you do have to question Devontae's size. I mean, he
Mm-hmm.
really is a slim reaper. I mean, he really looks like he's got toothpicks for legs, and so I mean, that's what makes it interesting. I feel like um that's what makes him going to Philadelphia, where I feel like you need something more sure. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know how to like process my thought about that, but I would feel like like it's a little bit of a risk to go after Devontae Smith. Not that I don't think he's not an NFL or shouldn't go in the first round, but I think you
Mm-hmm.
question just like how is his frame, like his body frame, going to translate to the NFL? You know,
Yeah.
and so which would be a risky pick for Philadelphia, to me. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
but you know, is that part of the are they thinking they're gonna get Wentz out and they want Jalen Hurts, who may be familiar with Devontae Smith, get those two duos going? If that's the case, then Miami should think. I think Miami would be in a better position to get Devontae over Philadelphia. When you talk
Yeah.
about, if you want, because I mean, Tua threw a national championship winning touchdown to Devontae Smith,
Mm-hmm.
so if you want that type of chemistry, it's kind of there for you.
Yeah.
And
Colts did that with Luck when the Colts drafted Luck, and like the second round or third round they drafted his tight end, and they had great chemistry for the years that they were together in
yeah,
Indianapolis. So like, why not get your quarterback someone that he's familiar
yeah,
with? So I would definitely, if I'm the Dolphins, I would definitely be looking at
yeah.
Smith.
So I think once you get to combine, that's what's going to be interesting to see what wide receiver Miami really wants. You know,
Mm-hmm.
and so anything else that sticks out to you, Jamie?
You talked about running backs. Travis, I can never say his name right. Atani, the running back from Clemson. He's got him mocked at 23 to the Jets. Now you're very much don't go
Et.
running back in the first round. I mean, I feel like at 23 that's a luxury pick for the Jets. Like,
Yeah,
that's a running back that you need
yeah.
playmakers. And so would you take Travis at 23?
I just think if you're the Jets, you've got so many other needs.
Yeah.
Because I like Clyde Edwards-Helaire, but
Mhm.
if you look at his season as a whole, and I know he was injured, but could you have found another Clyde Edwards-Helaire in a different round?
Yeah.
I think you can,
Do
because
do the Chiefs go Clyde Edwards-Helaire if Damian Wilson doesn't opt out though?
yeah, I mean that
We didn't have Le'Veon at that time.
yeah.
Our running back that helped win us the Super Bowl opts out. We needed a running back.
Yeah, I mean, I
So,
go back to the later rounds that they were still
mhm.
there. I'd have to go back and look at to me running backs, and especially if a guy like Najee Harris isn't looking like he's going to be a first rounder. If Najee
Mhm.
Harris is available in the second round, do the Jets contemplate trading out of that first pick to get more on the back end, to get more picks on the
Yeah.
back end. And to me, I think that would be something they should really, because Travis Etienne is a great running back. Um, you know, um, but like I said, there are so many other this. I'm more looking at it like, what are the Jets' needs? Because I didn't mind what the Chiefs did. They had a pick. They needed a running back, right? Like you were saying, but so you wanted the best possible for your team. So you just go get Clyde Edwards-Helaire because it fits in your system. That makes sense for a Chiefs team. But you're talking about a New York Jets team that has to overhaul almost seemingly, besides some defensive pieces, you almost have to overhaul their entire team. So if you take your 23rd pick and you get more picks on the back end in the second and third rounds, Etienne is good and he is first round talent, but there's other running backs that have first round talent to me in a second and possibly third round. Possibly.
Yeah. I think I'm okay with going running backs in the first round, but the very next pick, according to this mock, is Tevin Jenkins to the Steelers. He is an offensive tackle from Oklahoma State. I feel like that the Jets could wait and go offensive tackle for if they do go quarterback with their first pick. They go offensive tackle with 23. Wait until the second round because you're picking, what is it,
23rd.
30. They're picking 20 or 34th
okay, yeah.
in the second round.
Early pick.
Is Etienne still there? To maybe does Jacksonville go Etienne? If they don't, you still could end up with Etienne if that's your guy.
Yeah.
Go quarterback, offensive tackle, running back. You have now three major pieces that the Jets need. You have now secured those three pieces for the future. For 4 years, those are your guys that you can build around.
Yeah.
So if I'm the Jets, that's my plan. Quarterback, protection for the quarterback, a running back he can grow with. And then
yeah, and the other skilled player that's sometimes wide receiver, sometimes running back is Tony from Florida. I'm trying to see where they had him. I think he is going to the first round somewhere. But yeah, I mean, my thing is I like the Jets to get out of this pick. I really and that's what I would forecast them possibly doing if they don't go offensive tackle. Because if you get your quarterback, you want to do what the Miami did was, well, let's get our insurance now. We got our quarterback, let's get some insurance, So if you don't do that, there's a lot of running backs, good running backs, in the later rounds. I'm trying to think, Najee for sure could be there at 34. If you don't get Etienne could even possibly be there. He could still, like you said, he could still possibly be there. So if you go quarterback, offensive tackle, and running back, you just let the other teams decide what they want, and then you just rest in the fact that you just pick up your running back in the second round. That's what I would like for the what I would like to see the Jets do.
I could see Buffalo maybe going Etienne at 30. I feel like they have needs. But anybody, Jacksonville at 25 maybe. But if the Jets don't take Etienne at 23, I don't see a team that's left from 23 to 32 that will be taking Etienne. The only thing is you could make an argument for Jacksonville in the second round, But then, like you said, Najee Harris is still there, literally a pick later.
Yeah.
So I think if they don't trade 23, they need to definitely invest in offensive line at that position, at that pick. Don't trade it. You're gonna get some picks for Darnold. They're not going to be very high, but you're going to get something for his age and for he's a good quarterback. It's just it just didn't work out on a bad Jets teams, I should say. So you're going to get something for him, but I don't go running back there just because, like you said, there's so many more holes. And if you're going Zach Wilson at 2, you're going to need to get him protection.
Yeah.
Or you're going to have a Joe Burrow situation. And so protect your quarterback, get your skill players in the later rounds.
Yeah. I think there's, what's interesting about this draft is there's not sure picks. I look at the names, I look at the talent. There aren't as many sure bets as we've seen the last 2 years. Like bets, that especially like the wide receivers last year. I mean, the wide receivers taken have been, have made huge differences on their teams, right away. This class, I mean, Trevor Lawrence is a sure thing, but this class is riddled with good quarterbacks, who had success at the collegiate level. So that's why I almost debate, I think, do you just keep building your assets if you're the Jets, because Zach Wilson, once you leave Trevor Lawrence, the quarterbacks don't feel like they're a sure thing, So do you contemplate just getting out of these picks? Because I think there's a lot of teams that are closer, who are just like their piece as a quarterback away, that would be maybe something could come up where they could trade up. So a lot of interesting things.
We also need to consider with the Jets, and I like how this mock draft has just turned into the Jets, because they're a very interesting team.
Well, they got the picks. Yeah, they got interesting picks. Yeah.
This is not gonna be the Jets this year. This is not this year's Jets. This is going to be Robert Saleh's Jets. There's going to be a better leader there. There's going to be better just overall. The Jets are not going to be a playoff team next year, but this is definitely, I can see an 8-win team just because of Robert Saleh at head coach now. And so we have to almost erase our mindset when it comes to what we saw from the Jets this year and just be like, this is going to be a better team just because the leadership is going to be better, And so and I feel like if they feel like they can compete in that division right now, you shoot your shot at a quarterback.
Yeah.
And then you see where you go from there.
Yeah. I guess. Yeah, and that's a good point because I mean they're in the later weeks. I really saw the defense, like the talent they had on defense. I think was it Greg Williams was the coordinator. Whatever you think of him, I mean you saw the talent there, with Quentin Williams and the rest of them, but you can start seeing the form of a good team starting to happen because they started to be like Miami before that year. They started to be kind of competitive there late, and that's a credit to their defense. And so I think they've got a lot, and that's the reason, you see them kind of going all offense right now is because that's what they need.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I always get like, because when you've got such a quarterback heavy draft, do you consider any of these guys that aren't considered the top, that aren't considered the Trey Lance or Zach Wilson or Trevor Lawrence? is because there's to me there feels like a significant drop off when you leave Trevor Lawrence. And then when you get to these other quarterbacks, you could kind of just be like, well, how are they going to compete in the combine? You know, what is that going to look like the rest of this draft process? You know?
Yeah.
Because like I said, there's a lot of successful collegiate quarterbacks that aren't, you know, that are going to be forecasted in the 5th and 4th rounds, you know? So, I mean, that's what makes it interesting.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So, do you just get more assets, you know, moving forward?
Mm-hmm.
Or
Yeah.
does a team have enough assets that you would be interested in, I guess is the bigger question.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So that about wraps up our show. As always, let us know what you're thinking. And we will be talking, I'm sure, a lot about the upcoming Super Bowl. So
yes,
we will see you next time.